Hey, this is John. Today I just wanted to comment probably rather quickly on the comments that Mark Carney had recently made regarding affordability, because I understand that a lot of people are sort of, they probably just don't have any idea of how to actually contextualize that, so that's why I'm here. Um, but, uh, you know, in some respects, this is like a sort of response, I guess, to the idea one that like people are surprised that politicians would lie to them on either side of the aisle, frankly, and then the other is to actually kind of extract from that statement what is actually true and untrue, because I think that too many people are focusing so much on the you know very last thing that he said instead of like the other parts which were related to maybe one, more general affordability, two, inflation, and the three, incomes, right? Because I mean, broadly speaking, we kind of already know, uh, yeah, obviously, like affordability is not the best it's been in 10 years. But so, anyways, first, let's kind of look very quickly at what they're actually doing, generally, as per their words, as you can see, to improve affordability. Well, the first one is regarding like tax benefits, which will obviously going to put more money in people's pockets, but this typically affects affordability more temporarily, and you can see, one, this is one-time payment, but two, this is expected to last, at least they put this here, as of 2026, for the next 4 years, right? So obviously temporary, which means that goes away, obviously. Okay, and then the other one is setting aside money for food support, which we do see reflected in the data inflation when we go to that. Okay, so first regarding homes, what's actually kind of happening with the housing market? Well, I mean, obviously prices are going down, as you can see from the research done here by RBC. Though, like most economic indicators, you can see that this is obviously cyclical, and this decline doesn't necessarily have, and probably frankly has nothing to do with the administration itself acting in any specific manner, and has more to do with market factors, like, for example, homes being overpriced generally, and so more sales happening than purchases, right? So, one thing that you'll note about the relationship between politics and economics is that a lot of the time politicians and their parties do reap the benefits or take the blame of phenomena for which they had effectively nothing to do with. So here we would say that this would be an example of, I guess, undue praise potentially, by the end of the term, right? Because I mean, how would something like that get translated? Well, it'd be like, okay, well, home prices are down since we started. Now, on the flip side, if home prices were up, again, what would the other party say? Well, they'd say, oh, well, home prices are up since this person started. And again, it has, not that much to do with the political party and more to do with the market, although there are, things that politicians can do to affect that. It's not as much as you'd probably think. Okay, and then here's just some more data. We can see, yeah, pretty clearly, yes, obviously home prices are up over a 10-year period, but that was kind of expected. But they are clearly down over the last 5, and even over the last like 2 or 3, or whatever you want to take. As a quick side note, given that home prices are obviously declining again in aggregate, one of the spikes of immigration that we actually saw was mostly during the 2023 and 2024 period here in Canada. And so I'm kind of just, I guess, curious to some of these people who have, comments about immigration, increasing home prices so much. Where is that reflected in this data? So, anyways, then here's just the GDP. You can see obviously the GDP did improve. Regarding the effects of the U.S. tariff situation, I'm not sure how educated on the matter our viewers are, but the tariff situation was basically expected to reduce early GDP growth rates, but not so much affect the growth rate in the long term. Though in terms of absolute outcomes for GDP over, say, like, a 10-year period, that was obviously expected to be reduced, right? But more or less, the GDP growth rate has, I think, as of this year, is expected to catch up to what it was. So that's good, because initially the estimates were 2027 will kind of return to that growth rate. Okay. Now, regarding unemployment, so how does unemployment look? And we'll show a couple things. So first is kind of the average data, right? So these are not grouped by age, but we'll note that age is actually pretty significant in this case. But you can see that, and I did color code this, right? So the orange slots are for men, and these are for women, right? And so I color coded that to make that easier if you want to look through here. And these are just for, these two graphs are for total gender. And we can see that more or less the unemployment rate over a 10-year period is basically the same. It's obviously down from 2020. Again, recall that there was COVID at this time, but it's up from 2022 on average. Now, this by itself needs to be, put into context of the participation rate, because as I've commented on before, the unemployment rate only includes people who are actively searching for jobs, and that's basically what the participation rate reflects. As you can see that, even though the unemployment rate has kind of remained flat, the participation rate has gone, consistently down, and I'm expecting this to kind of, continue to go down. One of the reasons for that probably has mostly to do with, I guess, two things. One, frustration with the job market and the number of applications required to get a job and the length of time required to do that. And the other problem is with underemployment, which unfortunately seems like it was very difficult to find information on this time around, even though I had found it relatively easy a few months ago. So I don't know why that was difficult to find, but yeah, it didn't seem like I was able to find a statistic that matched approximately what I had seen in the past, if any, on underemployment. But underemployment is, I believe, a pretty significant issue in the Canadian market and probably in the American market as well, but yeah. Okay, so there's that. I just moved that to Excel to get the graphs. Okay, and then here's the unemployment rate again from just another source. Yeah. Okay. Now here's breaking down the unemployment by age group, right? And I think this is probably the most significant problem with the market at the moment is with the youths, right? Because we could see very clearly the unemployment rate has ticked up to at least at one point it's about 15%, like just shy of that. Now it's about 14%, and it has increased from the months prior, but more or less it's been that way for the last, as you can see, almost 2 years. So that's not really improved. In other areas, that's kind of improved, like the people in the 55 and older bracket. We can see that unemployment is moving downwards. Again, this is another thing that's more or less just cyclical, and there's not that much that businesses have to do with that. That politicians have to do with that. It has everything to do with business, actually. Yeah. Okay. I would like to make comments on AI. I'm going to reserve those for now, but yeah. Okay. This, I actually don't even remember what this is. Oh, yeah. So this is looking at average incomes. So looking at the let's say like constant dollar adjusted amounts, we can see more or less that well, this isn't really up-to-date data. I'm not going to worry about this, but yeah. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. Okay, here's the inflation rate. Inflation is obviously down and more or less at the average of 2%. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit below the so in case you don't know, like there are these stupid comments in the Project 2025 handbook, for example, regarding like the Bank of Canada doesn't set a target rate, but more or less it's pretty the central bank, I might have said Bank of Canada there, doesn't set a target rate, but yeah, it pretty much always like sets the target at 2% inflation and then adjusts its rates for that, more or less. So, yeah, they're a little bit below the target rate now, which is going to suggest that they're probably going to potentially continue to lower the central interest rate, but maybe not, because the other factor going into that is the currency. So if you use something like, just very briefly, the Mundell-Fleming model, then what you would understand is that the interest rate is basically the rate of return for foreign investors in that currency. So if the interest rate gets dropped, then foreign investors will earn less, and so they'll be less interested in the currency, so to speak, and so they'll sell some of the currency. And if you know anything about asset prices, as I was alluding to in the housing market, when you sell assets, it's obviously going to decrease the price. That's supply and demand as an extension of that. But anyways, so there's the inflation rate. Inflation is obviously down, but more or less just kind of historically at the target rate. Okay, and again, this has more or less not that much to do with the politicians, more to do with the central bank and industry. Now, one thing that we do see, though, is that, breaking down the inflation costs, is that it does seem like, by category inflation, it does seem like the, food measures have worked to at least decelerate the rate of inflation in food. So there's that. I mean, you can see pretty clearly that it was 7.3% a month ago. Now it's 5.4, right? Okay, and then shelter, everything regarding inflation is generally went down. And you can look at the categories. Again, I wouldn't necessarily ascribe this too much to the politicians. In the case of food, though, we do have some evidence to suggest they are taking measures against that, right? So maybe okay. And then this is just more information on inflation regarding the CPI. So there are different measures for inflation. Is you typically take a proxy for inflation to measure it, and the most common one is obviously the Consumer Price Index, or the CPI. But yeah, anyways, okay, and then last one to check is kind of the dollar. So the Canadian dollar against the USD has kind of weakened, generally speaking, over the last 15 years. More recently, it's been more or less flat over the last year, as you can kind of obviously see. I mean, there's like ups and downs around 1%, but really, currency doesn't have as many short-term economic factors as you may think. So really the only good measure, predictor, I guess I would say, for currency is purchasing power parity in the long term. Doesn't really matter what that means for this video. I'm just trying to say that the measures for currency are just extremely, I love using the word stochastic. I'm just going to say random here, like a pleb, though. Random in the short term, and it's basically just completely unpredictable. Okay, then the other one is compared to the euro, and compared to the euro, it's been more or less flat. So that's another important thing to kind of mention, is that it's only really weak relative to the USD over the last 15 years, so to speak. I mean, like also to the euro, but to a lower extent. Except I guess very recently, actually. And over the last 5 years. Okay, anyways, so one thing, that's kind of been an erroneous thing has been, just comparing us to the USD, whereas, there are other currencies, and when you go and compare it to other currencies, you may or may not find that, for example, the, weakening of the CAD relative to the USD may have more to do with the U.S. economy strengthening than, say, the Canadian economy weakening. Now, that's just kind of the principle. You can see here that that's more or less not the case, though. So that was just something I wanted to mention. Because I mean, if we look at, again, like 2012, I mean, it's stronger compared to the stronger relative to the euro than it is today, and then same thing with 2012 with the USD. Okay, cool. All right, so I hope that was fun. I guess just in closing, right? Yes, it's getting more affordable. It seems, at least currently. But again, that probably doesn't have very much to do with politicians anyways, to be totally honest. So it almost doesn't matter. And I don't really think that the comments that are like, oh, he lied to us, or I don't know, like, yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't really have other closing remarks than that. It's obviously not a 10-year low, but yeah. Okay. Anyways, bye.